you get to relax, but it's also that you get to watch your mind. You get to watch what your mind does. You get to watch how the mind works. Not just yours, but anybody's mind. That's why we talk about putting your shoes in that careful way. Your attention is your prized commodity. Where do you put your awareness? How do you place your shoes? Do you place them with care? How do you talk to your partner or to your friends or to the earth? Are you careful? Or are you just rushing along, just throwing things as you're trying to get to the next thing, which is what most of us do. I'm not saying anybody's particular here, but that's why we come on retreat. And that's what, when we go home, we try to carry this with us back there. And this gives you the opportunity to see when are you clenching, when are you resisting, and when are you surrendering. And so much of retreat is about surrender. It's just about surrendering. It's surrendering to this wacky schedule. It's sitting for hours at a time. It's surrendering to maybe food you don't like. It's surrendering to whatever. This is one of the things I'm learning through my own process here, is that if I fight this, I cannot tell you how much I suffer. And when I stop fighting it, there's so much grace. But if I fight what's happening, I mean, and believe me, there's a difference between resisting and grieving the surrender. So start surrendering now, because it's a whole lot easier to learn how to surrender your whole life than when you have to, because you have to give it all up. Whether it's a slow journey or a really fast journey, you just have to give the whole fucking thing up. Your identity, the things you love, the things you are used to doing, you just have to give it all up. And I tell you, the more I loosen my belly, the easier this ride is. And as we say, you die in the way that you lived. Don't forget that, everybody. You die the way you lived. So live the way you want to live right now. Really contemplate that and take that into consideration on this retreat. I'm still gathering us into retreat here a little bit. So Bodhi is an extra everything. He's just thinking all of his buddies are here. But it's so fun to have a little being we get to give our love to, right? It's like we're just desperate. We want to give our love to things so badly. We want the thing to come and give us love. And it's such a beautiful thing of our humanness. It touches me so much when I see where we have such a strong desire to connect, whether it's to the earth or to each other or to God, whatever the God is for you. And there's a way that when watching, I see that kind of come up, and I also can see that it can be a huge distraction for people. When you're practicing, ignore him. If he comes and gives you a kiss on the nose, ignore him, right? It's not that loving him is wrong. Use the opportunity to feel the longing and don't respond. I know it just kills us, but for those who are such doggy people. But when you're practicing, use the practice to notice the longing or the hatred or the, God, get the fucking dog out of here, whatever it might be. But watch whatever is that's coming up for you. I kind of like him doing it because I think he's bringing up stuff for people, whether it's resistance or attraction. But if as a group we were to decide, okay, enough of the dog, he'll just come with me and he'll come in here and lay down like he's doing, and he knows what to do when he's working. For right now, I'm going to let it stand as it is because I think it's great for us to be able to see what's coming up. When we're in transition, then yeah, totally fine. There is such an array of practice experience in this room, from people who have practiced for 25, 30 years and people who have just begun. So I'm going to be orienting my talks all over the place, and some of which you will not understand. But you'll understand on some deep level that will make sense with time. And some of it will make sense now. I listen to teachings that I've heard a million times, and I'm blown away at how I hear them now. I learn from them in a different way. So remember that we could hear the same talk over and over again, and we will listen to it and hear it in different ways. As our understanding progresses, our understanding at deeper levels of the same thing. And then I will be talking in more beginnerish ways because it is so important for all of us to hear it over and over again. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a talk that I'll finish later. I want to just talk about our deepest spiritual calling. Because we wouldn't be here right now if we didn't have this depth of a spiritual calling that's calling from someplace that's so deep inside. And that spiritual calling is trying to find a way through the web of the complexity of our ego. And the complexity of our ego is this conflicted self, right? It's the surface part of our experience. It's the part that is always disappointed, always there's a little anxiety, there's a little rub, and it is profoundly compelling. The spiritual calling drops down and meets at this one point. And it's incredibly quiet. It is endlessly calling us, but its call is very, very quiet. Where this is incredibly compelling. And the spiritual impulse doesn't get hijacked like this does. Right? We're just getting hijacked by the mind all the time. But when we're resting in that spiritual impulse, we're not hijacked by that. We can be, and that's basically what I'm going to be talking about. But the spiritual impulse itself is not hijacked by the ego. We get hijacked, the egoic part. The conflict and the drama has this gravitational force that is where most people live all the time, is in that gravitational pull of that angsty, conflicted self. As I was saying before, our attention is our most prized commodity. Where do we put our attention? And most of the time we put our attention on the conflict, on the angst. Even if we don't think there's a big conflict going on, we're talking like little conflicts all day long. I want this, I don't want that, I want more of this, I need that. Oh, I'm going for a beautiful walk, but I got to get back because I've got to make sure that I do this one thing. Right? That's the angst. Right? And we're really, if you think about it, like how much of a day are we actually free of that? So the spiritual practice is the conscious use of our awareness. Where do we put our awareness? If I was going to put it down into one sentence, that's what the spiritual practice is. Where do we put our awareness, and where do we put our attention and our intention? What is our intention? So what am I doing with my awareness? So even just right now, let your belly loosen. Are we clenching? So when we get caught in the internal conflict, which is the egoic state, we're caught on the wheel of samsara, right? And that wheel of samsara, because it's a wheel, never ends. It will not stop. And if you think that you will think your way into stopping that, you will forever be on the wheel of samsara, because that's the point of the wheel. Does that make sense? But we try to think our way off of it to find resolution. We will never find resolution from that state. We might find temporary resolution because we're on the walk and we have to get back and do something and we did it. Whew, relief. Now, what do I have to do after that? Because I have to do this, and I can't believe she said that, right? That's just how that works. So it's needless suffering. That is needless suffering. I can't say that enough. So often we come to this authentic spirituality when we have worked on ourselves a lot. We start to notice a really deep spiritual call when we've started to work on ourselves a lot. And we're working on trying to arrive somewhere. Oftentimes this idea of when we're working on ourselves, we're going to arrive somewhere and we're going to be better. And I mean, obviously, we have all done so much work on ourselves, and I can say that is incredibly important that we do the work on ourselves. But at some point in our journey of working on ourselves, we begin to realize that that is the endless fix ourselves project, and we will never actually complete. And we're never going to arrive somewhere because there will all be something more to fix. So the real spiritual life starts when we see the cyclic nature of it. I want to make sure you understand that. Is when we see the nature of how the mind works is when we enter into the spiritual path. Not the working on ourselves until we're so incredibly self-aware, and yet we just keep doing the same things over and over. Both the things that are the neurotic things and the trying to fix the neurotic things. Over and over and over and over and over. So I'm not saying that psychotherapy, as a psychotherapist, and I'm not saying that working on ourselves is wrong. We need to do that, right? We wake up and we grow up. They have to happen simultaneously. We have to work on our old traumas and wounds that are holding us back in some way. But the real spiritual practice begins when we start to see the cyclic nature of the mind. But if our attention is always on trying to fix ourselves, no matter how much good work we do, we will still be on the wheel of samsara, because there is still going to be the drive to be better. So just the recognition of that cyclic nature can totally free us up. My experience has been that the things that I was working on, when I realized the cyclic nature of my mind, the things I was working on resolved. They resolved naturally because I let go of the self-improvement process. And when I let go of the self-improvement process, there was something that opened up that naturally freed up the things that I was stuck with. So when we really get this cyclic nature, we're then freed up and available for life as it is. And that is a big step in our spiritual life, is when we become available to existence in some way. So much of what I'm saying, I realize, can have a paradox. Obviously, all of the spiritual teachings are paradoxical. And that's why I'm pushing how you place your shoes. Right? Because how we place our shoes is how is our awareness and our care. Where do we place our care? Our care is on looking at the cyclic nature of our egos and then just being available to life, to caring for life, to care for the community. Why do we stand together until everybody's in their place? Because we're caring for the community. We are in a boat together here. And it's just a sign of respect. If you're always going off and walking farther away than you can hear the bell, or you're resistant, or you go, I can walk really slow back in and so I'm going to be late. Look at your cyclic nature that you are caught in. Can you surrender to the program? Right? This is the program that we're doing here. We're taking care of the community. Watch what is your common behavioral thing that you do. If you find that you're always doing it here, give it up. Just see what it's like to give it up for a day, for a week. What happens? To keep a behavior pattern going, you have to think about it. And you usually have to clench, because there's usually a resistance or a gravitational pull toward something. Does that make sense? So really think about, what am I doing that is consistent, that in some way I can give up for a period of time, that doesn't make me weak, it doesn't make me just like everybody else. You are all so completely unique and you have your own lives out there. What I'm trying to do is help you free up so that you have choice, that you are not owned by your behavior patterns, but you actually have a choice in what you do. If you're caught in the gravitational pull of the self-improvement project, or the project of, I'm my independent person, I'm this, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I'm not this, I'm blah, you're usually not available to reality. And that's what I'm trying to help with, is let's get available to reality. So again, paradox here. When a neurotic pattern arises, it's not like we can avoid that there's usually an inner conflict. Tend to the inner conflict, but tend to it in reality. Tend to what is actually arising in you. I'm sad, I'm afraid, I am grieving, I am worried. Tend to the experience, the direct experience. And there are times where we have to directly relate to the circumstance. That's true. We have to relate to a circumstance. Something is in need. But most of the time, you're mind fucking. 99% of the time, you're mind fucking. Give up the mind fuck. Tend to the direct experience. When it passes, done. No aftertaste. Gone. I have taught that for so long. Being in the situation I'm in right now, let me tell you how important no aftertaste is. Because then I'm available for the sunrise. I'm available for the sunset. I don't have that many left. And I don't want to miss it. If I'm going back and picking up the grief of the thing that I'm so attached to, leaving, that's where I'm just going to be ground down into that, and I won't be available. I want to be available for every second of this process. And I want all of you to be available for every second of this process. So, our spiritual life allows us to look at the roots of the suffering, the roots of our sorrow, the roots of our misperception. That's why the spiritual life is different from the egoic life. The egoic life is in the suffering, blinded. The spiritual life is looking at what's the root of that. We begin to see that the deep issues are more innate than they are a personal story. We start to see, this is how all of our minds work. Everybody's mind is doing the same damn thing. The ingredients are different, but this is how the mind works. And some people have more of an emphasis in this part of the way the mind works, and somebody else is over here. But we start to transcend our personal story and see that this is just the human experience. Can you just feel the freedom in that? There's so much freedom in realizing that is just the way the human mind works. There's not a problem. And we're not special. And there's some way of being able to see it and go through our life and go, of course that's happening. Of course my mind wants to grab hold of all the things I'm losing. Of course it does. All day long. But there's some freedom in being able to know, of course that's what my mind does. There's so much kindness, so much love, and so much freedom that I don't have to do it. That there is not only the spiritual calling, but there is this existence that is around us that is so vast and so mysterious that I actually get to spend my time in. Because what the mind wants to do is it wants to resolve the issue. The mind is designed to solve the problem. When there isn't a problem, it will create one over and over and over and over and over. Don't be surprised by it anymore. So it will always seem as though there's a problem. Right? That is the nature of it. And you will spend your life trying to resolve. That's why I say on retreat, if you're mind fucking something, you come back, drop mid-sentence. Just drop mid-sentence. And oftentimes we go, I just got to think. Right? And if you're like me, I'm like going, I have to remember 5 things, and I have to remember the first letter of each thing, and then I have to make a word out of those first letters so I don't forget what the thing is I have to remember because I don't have my pad of paper. Fuck me, God. That's what we're doing. And so what I do is I just say, stop mid-sentence. Just drop it. And the ego goes, right? I'm going to forget something important for the self-improvement process. Right? And that's where we have to trust. You might make a mess of things, and that's okay. There's something about learning this deeper, that we are being cared for and protected, and what we need to remember, we will remember. And sometimes I don't remember what I need to remember, especially as this disease gets worse. My memory is, ugh. And it's hard on my ego. Really hard. The deep spiritual impulse is to connect. Right? That impulse is about this meaningful connection to see itself, to connect with itself, to existence, to life, to earth, to God. We just long to connect to God, to the mystery, whatever we want to say God is. We long for that. And that is what the impulse is to be there. The only way to connect that deeply to existence is we have to be available. And that means we have to stay in not knowing, the deepest sense of not knowing. Just staying in a place of not thinking we know about somebody else or what's right or wrong or whatever. When we stay in the place of our own intuition, we will know when it's time to roar. But it will come not because we think something is right or wrong or good or bad, but it will come from a place of such profound love and connection. That movement will come from that place of right action in that moment. Look at what's happening in the world right now. Look what happens to the earth. Look what's happening politically. There is so much being caught in the conflicted mind. And there's so much in the self-improvement, wanting to improve, wanting to get it right, wanting to be right, wanting to whatever, that it's just so much greed and envy and hatred. That stopping the spiritual impulse is about resting down in that we don't know. So the impulse that comes out of it is out of intuition. But we have to listen so deeply. That's why we come on retreat, is that we're learning how to listen at that level of depth